Hi friends, welcome in and welcome if you're new. My name is Jess, Jeff, Jessie or Jeffy and welcome to my channel. We are continuing with episode 2 of our Pleasantview series, which is going to be a let's play. But to begin with, we're doing the introductions, we're doing a brief history of and then what the Sims have been up to in the 25 years that we left them and where they are now when we kick off our let's play 25 years later. So if you've not seen the first episode, I'd suggest you go back and watch that. I'll put the thingy up here, and that is Don's story and where he is now. There's also a couple of speed builds of different things that have been built in the game so far that I've uploaded. So I've done Brandy's Diner, which obviously gives you a hint, Dustin's Car Workshop, and Don's something or other, which I'm not telling you until you've watched his let's play, so go watch it. Today we're focusing on the Goth family. So what I'm going to do is read the family bios, and then I'll pull up the family tree and we will go through each sim in a little bit more detail. So when the Goth family is obviously quite famous throughout the Sims franchise. They're in every single iteration of the game. And when you start, like back in Sims 1, you have Bella, Mortimer and Cassandra. Then Sims 2, they've got Alex and Bella's missing. And then the Sims 4 is on a different timeline, so I'm not really going to talk about that. But in the Sims 3, it's set before, so it's when they were children. So they live at 165 Sim Lane. And their family bio says Cassandra is ready to start a family of her own, but can she tame the town Casanova on Lothario? And can Mortimer bounce back after the disappearance of his wife Bella? Okay, so what we will do is I'll bring up the family tree now and I'll go through the family tree and then we'll go into each sim in a bit more detail. So obviously we've got Bella and Mortimer Goth here, and then you can see that Bella's brother Michael Batchelor, who is actually Dina's ex-husband, he's died, and their parents. So Bella's parents were Simis Batchelor and Jacosta Batchelor, and then obviously her brother is Michael, and then she was married to Mortimer Goth and they had Cassandra and Alex. And then on Mortimer's side we've got his parents Cornelia and Gunther Goth. We've then got his aunt Frida and who's his brother's his dad's sister, and then we've got Cornelia Goth's sister Agnes Crumplebottom. And then so Cornelia and Agnes's mum was Simon Crumplebottom and Prudence Crumplebottom, and Gunther and Frida's was Victor and Gretel. This is actually, I think, the only family in Pleasantview when you load the game that you can trace right back to the grandparents. So like Cassandra and Alex's grandparents, there's no one else that you can actually trace all the way back to like great grandparents and stuff like that, which is quite a nice little thing. Anyway, right, so we'll start with the Sims, and we are going to start with Morty and Bella. If you see me glancing down, it's because I've written myself some notes, because I'll go off on a fucking tangent otherwise. If you've seen me on Twitch, you'll be well aware of that. I'll start telling a story and then I don't really know where I'm going with it because I haven't thought it through. I get halfway through the story and then I'm not really entirely sure what the point was. So I've written it down and I'm very proud of myself for that one. Thank you very much. I think I deserve a pet. So, Mortimer Goth. It says, Mortimer is cheerful and outgoing. Mortimer brings his old country upbringing into the modern age. He has an unusual fondness for insects. He's a cancer sim and he's also a knowledge sim. So, Bella and Mortimer met when they were children. And we know that because of The Sims 3. So they were childhood sweethearts. You can see through their... Hello, Umbro. My dog's just showing me his ball and he's very cute. They knew each other as children, and we know that because of The Sims 3. They're in that one as children in Sunset Valley. And we can look back through the memories of Mortimer, who has all his memories intact. And we can see that they were children together, that they were friends, that they shared their first kiss, that they were going steady, and then that they got married. So they were childhood sweethearts. When we start the game, Mortimer is an elder and he's kind of nearing death, so he's only 7 days left before he dies of old age if you don't use like life elixir or something like that, or cheats. And since Bella disappeared, he's been seeing Dina Caliente, who is only with him for his money, but we'll go into her and her sister in another video when it comes to their turn round. So Mortimer is now retired. He's a mad scientist, so he worked his way up the scientist career track from test subject, and Cassandra's actually followed in his footsteps and she's in the science career as well. both of his parents, Gunther and Cordelia, both died in separate fires, and you can find like all the graves of most of the family in the backyard, which is probably why you can trace their family tree back so far. And a little bit of tidbit trivia, I suppose, is that in all of the iterations of the game with the Goths in, except for The Sims 2, because it's on another timeline, there's a graveyard in all of their gardens, which is quite nice. I quite like that. Nice little bit of creepiness from, which I just love. So yeah, both of them are dead. He's got 9 cooking points, and he's maxed out his cleaning and logic, which is what he needed for his career track, so that's why he's at the top. His personality is exactly the same as Alexander's, so its personality is sloppy, outgoing, lazy, playful, and grouchy. So Sims with this personality type would normally be a Taurus, but he's actually been programmed to be a Cancer. Did I say Cancer? I did say Cancer. Did I say Cancer? Yes, I said Cancer. So his interests include culture, paranormal, health, animals, work, toys, and sci-fi. And then he does have some other interest points and stuff, but they're nowhere near as high. So he's got a couple for environment, food, money, travel, crime, sports, and school. And then Bella, who I'm going to have a whole separate video for Bella because there's quite a lot of stuff I want to go into for her. So I am going to do an entirely separate video for her. Her bio for Strangetown Bella reads, elegant and athletic are 2 qualities that describe Bella. She enjoys a variety of activities from golf to miniature golf. So, like I say, that's Strangetown Bella's bio, because Pleasantview Bella doesn't have a bio. If you bring her back, she actually doesn't have... my dog. She actually doesn't have any personality points or memories at all. Strangetown Bella doesn't have any memories either. So if you put Strangetown Bella and Pleasantview Bella side by side, you can see that there's a noticeable difference in the way that both of the Sims actually look. They've got different face templates, and one of them's been edited, and one of them I think is just the original face template, I think for number 1, something like that. But they are slightly different, and you can see that when they're side by side. EA came out and did say that Strangetown Bella is the real Bella, so that they're both Bellas, but there are rumours circulating about clones and things like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to cover Bella in a whole separate video, because she's been up to a lot. That woman, she's been getting around. So we're gonna cover her properly, and we're gonna go over an interview that she did, which can be found on the Sims 2 archived website, where she talks about her abduction. But so when we start the game, she's actually still missing, and she was last seen on Don's deck, where she rejected his romantic advances. Many of the family's memories do include Bella, so it shows that it's kind of fairly recent that she went missing. And it was when Alex was a toddler. So she taught Alex to talk, like I said before, but then that's kind of all the memories he has of her. And like you can see in the family tree, she isn't greyed out, which shows that she's not technically dead. She is just missing in the game. And Cassie and Mortimer both have memories of her going missing. I know Mortimer's is a positive memory, but I can't remember if Cassandra's is. It might be because, actually, maybe not, because she's a family sim and he's a knowledge sim. If you have the law enforcement career reward, which is the fingerprint scanner, and go into the Goth household, if you scan the furniture when you start the game up, most of it's been touched by her. So there's 2 theories really that I can see, and that is either that she was abducted so recently that the furniture has still got her fingerprints on, and it's more proof that it just was very recent abduction, or that most of the house was left partially untouched. Personally, I can't see that being the case because the wonderful Wizard of Oz, because Alex was a child, and I just feel like, I know he's like a lot like his dad, but I still feel like he would have played a lot. Anyway, so like I said, she can be found in Strangetown with no memories. You can get Bella back, but you've got to do it in a certain way, otherwise you can corrupt your game. So there's cheats and guides on how to do that, and also if you get the Meet Me to the Rivers clean template, you can get a version with Bella back, which is what I did. I'll link down below the Meet Me to the Rivers Tumblr, where you can get the clean template, so you can create your own Uberhood or just have the clean file neighborhoods. And I'll also put down in the description my video for how I got my Uberhood working. Okay, so then we're going to move on to Cassandra. So it says, Cassandra is the quiet, mysterious type. Nobody ever quite knows what she's thinking. She's a Virgo sim, which actually with her personality type, there would normally be a Cancer, which why haven't I written that down? But I'm sure it's Cancer. and she wants to have a family. So she is hoping to tame Don Lothario, who she's engaged to when you first start the game up, and she wants to settle down and have kids because she's a family sim. So she, again, is in the science career track like her dad, but she's a field researcher. Her personality is shy, neat and playful. She's kind of in the middle for active and lazy, and she is more on the grouchy side. Like I say, she would normally be a Cancer sim. She has interest in paranormal, sci-fi, health. She's maxed out those ones. Then she's got quite high ones in toys and work, and then some others in environment, food, weather, culture, travel, crime, sports, entertainment, and animals. So quite a lot, like considering some of the other Sims don't seem to have as many as that. All of her toddler skills were taught to her by Bella, which shows that Bella was obviously quite a hands-on mother. Her and Mary Sue are best friends when you start the game, and they've known each other since childhood. Now, if you look at the ages of the Sims, it looks as though Mary Sue is considerably older than Bella, but they did meet as children, so I don't know. Anyway, they're best friends and besties, and then Darren Dreamer has got a crush on her, and if you do any romantic interactions between the two of them, they do tend to fall in love. And I know a lot of people ship them together. So I'm not going to say what I've done just yet. We'll get onto that in a second. But yeah, so that's Darren and her friendship. She doesn't know that he's got a crush on her. So when you first play her, you'll load up the lot and Don will be there, and the scripted events play through you like having a romantic interaction and then getting married. Sometimes that'll work out, sometimes that'll fail. So sometimes she does get left at the altar, but not every time. So for me, I find that if depending on what romantic interaction you do is kind of what makes it, I think. I do think that if you don't do any, I've had him stay, but most of the time he'll leave. But if you do a couple of romantic interactions, then generally he will marry her, although he does get the negative memory from doing that. So yeah, the higher the relationship, the more likely. And then we've got little Alex. So it says for him, as a child of older parents, Alexander often wonders if he missed out on anything. His hobbies include optometry and number theory. So he's a private school student, he's a grade A student, and he's got the Cancer personality and he wants to grow up. So like I said before, he's got the exact same personality as his dad. So he is sloppy, outgoing, lazy, playful, and grouchy. So, and like I said, normally a Taurus. So he shares his father's intelligence despite being quite young, and he often is given the knowledge aspiration for this reason by other simmers that I've seen, and a lot of my friends I know tend to give him knowledge. He does have a hidden fortune token within the game though, which is kind of hinting at that being what EA wanted for him. I didn't choose either of those for him. Alex is born 2 days before Mortimer turns into an elder, I think a day or two, it's one of the two. And then despite pictures shown in the family album, it shows obviously that Cassandra is kissing him as a baby and she's a teenager. But if you actually look at their memories, he was born when Cassandra was a child. So that's a little bit messed up. But he, like the memory thing, well, album, but she was a child when he was born. He was taught to talk by Bella in his memories when the game loads, but Mortimer has memories of teaching him all three. So what I like to think is that Mortimer and Bella all sat down together, and that Bella and Mortimer taught him together, because I like that. I think it's cute. And then Bella was abducted just before he became a child, and when the game loads, he's 4 days out from being a teenager. His interests include the environment, paranormal, sci-fi, toys, animals, and school. And then he does have a couple of others. So for food, weather, culture, politics, health, travel, sports, entertainment, and work. They're just so fleshed out, aren't they? And if Mortimer's died by the time that Alex goes to university, instead of being dropped off by Mortimer, he'll actually get dropped off by Bella. So I don't know. Anyway, so that's them, their personalities and stuff. And then what has happened in the 25 years? Well, let's get into it, friends. It's the next day because it's hot as fuck in the UK today, and I literally couldn't face recording anymore yesterday. So we are on to what's happened in the 25 years that have passed. So we're going to start with Mortimer, go on to Bella, then Cassandra, and then Alex. But like I say, with Bella, there's going to be a whole separate video for her. So her bit in this is going to be kind of short and summarised so that we can go over hers in a full video. Okay, right. Mortimer, a few years have passed since Bella disappeared, and he was beginning to move forward and try to focus on himself and keep himself busy. So he wanted to get a part-time job in the education career track because he absolutely loves imparting knowledge on his children and his grandchild. So this is what he decided to do. He got a job there. And then, like I say, a few more months go by, and one evening Mortimer's outside teaching Alexander a new piano piece because they enjoy playing piano together quite often after dinner. He spots a flash of red outside which catches his eye, and ever hopeful, Mortimer goes dashing outside to see if maybe this time Bella's back. And finally something happened for him, and there she was stood right in front of him. She looked kind of afraid and confused really, but Mortimer was overjoyed and called Alex outside to join in with this family reunion. Bella explained that she'd been seeing a hypnotherapist to try and remember what happened to her in the 5 years since her disappearance, and she began remembering the encounter that she had with the aliens and knew that there wasn't a crash landing, so she must have been placed down in Strangetown, and then she finally made her way back. She began remembering her family after working with them and knew that she felt this strong bond and strong love for them, and was finally ready to come home, but not knowing whether Mortimer would still be around and not really knowing what sort of reception she would get from her family. Alex obviously had rushed outside and he was so thrilled to see his mum again. They quickly decided that Bella would obviously move back into the family home and that they would continue their treatment and working together as a family. A few days go by and Mortimer and Bella's relationship seems to be going really well. From his perspective, things are kind of back on track. So he takes her outside to the spot that he saw her in those few days before, and he proposes to her and she says yes, and they begin their wedding plan. The day of the wedding rolls around, and let's take a As you can see, poor old Mortimer gets left at the altar. Bella couldn't go through with it. She sort of did a bit of a runner, and then she came home to explain to him what had happened. She said that although she knew that she loved him, she knew that she loved Alex, something just didn't feel right, and she didn't feel that love. It wasn't coming back after months and months of treatment, and something just wasn't right. So she decided that the best thing for her and for the family would be that she moves out and tries to find her own feet again. So Alex is obviously devastated by this news because he's just got his mum back and he already feels like he's losing her again. She explains to him that she'll still be really present within his life, and she does continue to be. So she pops off, and we'll go into what she's been up to in the 25 years in another video, because she's been up to a lot. So Mortimer is trying to come to terms with Bella leaving again, which was really hard for him, but although it was difficult, it didn't feel as difficult as the first time round. Something about this one, it felt like it was the right thing to happen, and after the initial shock of her leaving him at the altar, he was actually kind of relieved. He felt like he knew that he, again, had love for Bella, but there was something that just wasn't there, and if she didn't feel it, it wasn't right for her, him, or Alex and the Cassandra and the grandchild. So he began working on himself really hard. He wanted to complete his lifetime aspiration, which was to max out all of his skills. And one evening he managed to do that when composing his latest piano piece, which him and obviously Alex loved to do together. When he was able to complete this meant that he had access to all of this knowledge that he didn't have before. He'd researched and he's heard about this drink for years and years, a drink that could roll your days back and you could have more time. And that was what Mortimer wanted. He felt like he'd spent so long waiting for Bella to come back, and although he lived, he didn't truly do the things that he wanted to do. He didn't have the life he wanted and he wasn't ready to go yet. So he got the life elixir and began taking that. He was ready. He wanted to be there for Alex going to college and see him through college. He wanted to be a grandchild, grow up and meet his other grandchildren that he may have. He continued to focus on his work in the education career, and one day he was sat in the staff room with his mate Jemima, and they were having a little chat. She's an elder as well, and she obviously works in the same career. And all of a sudden, it sort of hit him that he was in love with this woman, and he was looking at her thinking, you're exactly what I want, and he was hoping that she felt the same way. So he invited her over for dinner and then decided to be brave and confess his feelings for her, and she felt the same way. So they found this companionship within each other. They courted, as they called it, for a long time. And then eventually she moved in and they decided they didn't want to waste any more time. And they got married. So they're still living as though they're newlyweds. They're super happy and they enjoy spending time together, surrounded by their family and their grandchild. They're hoping that more grandchildren will be on their way. And that's Mortimer and Jemima now. Then Cassandra. As we saw in Don's part of the story, he left poor Cassandra at the altar, which completely destroyed her. It really broke her heart, and she felt like she was never going to be able to trust anybody again and wasn't going to be able to move on from this. She was convinced that was it for her. She wasn't going to be able to get married. She wasn't going to be able to have children because she didn't know how she could love again. One day, after a few months, things had started feeling a bit easier, and she was curled up reading her favourite book when suddenly she felt a strange sensation in her stomach. She wondered whether the lobster thermidor that she'd cooked them for dinner was maybe a bit underdone, because Cassie isn't the best cook in the world. So up she got to go and head towards her family to see if they were feeling funny as well, when something happened that was completely unexpected. Her belly grew and she realised, I'm pregnant. And initially she was quite scared, was worried about how people would receive this news, because she'd always wanted to wait until she was married to Woohoo. She'd told this to Don, but then one night after drinks and a dip in that lucky old hot tub of his, things escalated and it produced this child. But it was a situation she'd regretted for a really long time and had wished it hadn't happened, and felt this shame around it, even though she knew that there was no shame at all in woohooing. But now she had a little baby on the way, so everything sort of slotted into place. She rushed to share the news with her family, who were absolutely thrilled. Months go by and then she gives birth, and she has a little baby girl who she calls Amethyst. Now, hello Andy. Cassandra's been hiding a secret for quite some time at this point, months and months. Since Don left her at the altar, really, she's been hiding a bit of a secret. And she was trying to push these feelings down and not let it affect her, not let it affect her daughter, because she wanted to be able to just have a normal life, really, as much as she could do with this secret. She decided that it was time to move out of the Goth family house and get a place of her own. So she took her part of the fortune and all the money she'd managed to save through working and invested it in by building a house for her and her daughter Amethyst. They live on the very top of the hill in Pleasantview, where they can oversee the whole of the town, but they're also on the outskirts, which is exactly what Cassandra wanted. She taught Amethyst all of her toddler skills and she grew up beautifully, and then as a child she did really well, but she was homeschooled, so she didn't have a traditional education in the sense, although her grandfather Mortimer could never understand why Cassie didn't want to take her to private school where he could pull a few strings and he knew she'd get in. It was homeschooled because Cassandra wanted to keep this secret to herself and keep her secret to herself and protect her daughter, which is what she did. So she grew up beautifully, they had a really strong bond, they were really happy, and although she sort of felt on the outskirts, she was a happy kid. It didn't bother her particularly. And then it rolled around her birthday to become a teenager, and Cassie realised that actually now was the time that she needed to share this secret with her daughter, because she knew that there was a good chance that this was going to affect Amethyst's life as well. So there was a room in the house that was always off limits, which Cassandra had kept under lock and key, kind of like where they're like going to go in the restricted section of the library and Harry Potter and stuff, and the fucking place where they keep Fluffy. P.S. JK's a twat. And she took her inside there, and Amethyst couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. She knew strange things had happened to her throughout the years, and she'd seen the odd thing here and there that had made her question herself and also her mother. And she looked around and saw a cauldron and a spell book and bookcases full of different, like, old-looking books, potions dotted around, different ingredients she hadn't seen before, and crystals everywhere. She was completely baffled by this, and then Cassandra sat her down and explained that following being left at the altar by her dad, Don, who she knows is her dad, she was down the park one day reading her book, trying to sort of be at one with nature and get over what had happened, when she glanced over and she saw a woman who appeared to be sort of glittering, and she thought, what in the Edward Cullen is this? And then she decided to go over because she was intrigued, and this woman and her just started talking normally, and they got on really well. They actually became quite close friends. They would meet here and there in the park, and Cassandra always wanted to ask these questions that plagued her mind about whether it was magic, what was going on, but didn't quite have the guts to do it. However, her friend did sense this, and one day sat her down and explained that she was a witch, and she was a good witch, and she was prepared to turn Cass into one as well, because she knew that Cassie would be responsible with this. She would only use neutral and good magic, and she felt like it was the right thing to do. Cassandra was thrilled about this because she'd always had this obsession with all things occult, and decided that this was 100% the life she wanted to live. She explained to Amethyst this was why strange things happened when she was a child, and toys would suddenly sort of maybe seem to fly around on their own, and different things would happen with flowers when Amethyst touched them, stuff like that. And it all sort of fell into place, and they realised that Amethyst was a witch as well. So Cassandra started teaching Amethyst the ways of magic in the spellcasting room. They started studying together. She warned her that she could only ever study neutral and light magic. She didn't want her going down the path of dark magic. So one day they're in the spellcasting room, and Amethyst is feeling a bit out of sorts because she'd been looking out of her window over Pleasantview and looking through her telescope, and had seen her father with his family. Now, Amethyst had always felt quite on the outside growing up. She had a happy childhood, and she had a really good bond with her mum, but she could never understand why her father had rejected her. He knew that Cassandra had had her. She'd gone to him when Amethyst was a baby and explained, but he'd denied all knowledge of this happening and saying that it wasn't his baby. And she grew up knowing that her father knew of her, didn't want anything to do with her, and had a new family. So she was feeling out of sorts. Her mum was making a potion in the cauldron, and she was reading through her book. And this urge just sort of overcame her, and she flipped to the end of her book and started reading about dark magic. She felt this sort of, she was drawn to it, and felt like she couldn't not follow this path. She did this sort of in secret, away from her mum's eyes, because she didn't want her to know what she was doing. Cassandra had kind of kept Amethyst slightly younger than what maybe she should have been with spells, as she didn't want her childhood to fly by so quickly. Cassandra appeared to have aged only slightly, and Amethyst, instead of being a young adult or just turning into a young adult, she was actually still a teen, a late teen, but still a teen. So they're in there studying the magic, and she's drawn to this. She doesn't want to let her mother down, but she also knows that she needs to make her father Don pay. So at night she'll sneak into the spellcasting room, and she's studying the path of dark magic with the intent to, like I say, get some revenge with her dad. So I guess we'll have to see how that one plays out. Finally, Alex. So after his mother returned and then left again, he really began longing for this family unit that he thought he was going to have again, and unfortunately it didn't turn out like that. He still had his family all very present in his life, but he didn't have that nuclear family that he'd sort of longed for so long. He continued to work on his studies, and he was always very bright. He remained an A student throughout all of his school years, and then he went on to college. Him and his dad were best friends. He's got a really close relationship with Cassie, and he's also got a really close relationship with his niece Amethyst, as they aren't too far apart in age really. Upon growing up, he decided that he wanted to go to college and learn as much as possible, but he had this really strong desire to have a family, which actually was a lot stronger, and he ended up with the family aspiration. He'll probably have a secondary knowledge aspiration, but he's very, very family orientated. Alex attended college, and he got good grades and remained on the dean's list the whole time. He studied economics because he wanted a bright future so he could support himself and his future family. Throughout his teenage and college years, Alex had kept mostly to himself and didn't date. He didn't really make a whole lot of friends while he was at college either, because he focused so heavily on his grades and put so much pressure on himself that he didn't leave a whole lot of time for anything else. He always felt like pursuing his love life was too scary, because he was always unsure of his feelings for people and what he truly wanted aside from wanting the family. After he graduated college, he had a lovely graduation with his family and moved back to Pleasantview. He signed for an apartment and took the first job he could get until he could get the job in his chosen career, which is intelligence, which he hasn't managed to get yet, but he's had interviews and he's hoping that it will be just around the corner. Shortly after moving in, a new neighbour moved in across the hall, so Alex decided to go across and introduce him to him. So he knocked on the door and came inside and started talking to Juan, and it was almost like a lightning strike. Alex suddenly realised, oh my god, I think I feel something for this person. He didn't know if it was love at first sight or what, but they clicked and Alex felt really, really strong feelings towards him. They began talking as friends. They're quite close friends at this point, but Alex is yet to reveal how he feels about him. So what we'll have to see is if Alex is brave enough to reveal his feelings for Juan, whether they pursue a relationship and see where it takes him and whether it works out. But at least now Alex is sort of finding himself, realising what he wants, and is more likely to go through it because his studies are out of the way and he's on his hunt for a job and a family. And that is where the Goths are 25 years later when we pick up. So we've got Alex, who's in love with his neighbour. We've got Cassandra, who is a witch, with her daughter Amethyst, who is studying the path of the darkness because she wants to get revenge on her father Don. And we have Morty, who is married to Jemima. Her second name was Puddles. I thought it was very clever. And they're very happy as well. And he, like I say, has taken life elixir because he's not ready to go yet. So it's similar to Cassandra in the sense that she is slowing down hers and Amethyst's aging also. And Bella's story will be coming. But thank you so much for watching. I've had so much fun playing through this and making these storylines, and I'm so excited to keep playing it through with you guys on YouTube. I'm hoping once all of the recaps of the families are out of the way, it'll be quicker to get the episodes out to you guys. But we are getting there, and like I say, Cassandra's speed build will be up probably next week because it's all recorded and things. I've just got to edit it, which takes me some time. If anyone's got any tips on how to edit quicker, please just share them with me for the love of God. But thank you so much for watching. Like I say, had a blast. I love this game. I love these families. And if you enjoyed the video and want to follow along for their Let's Play, please consider giving me a like and a subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, and if you want to catch me before then, I stream on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday and Friday, Sims 2 every Monday and Friday, and then I stream Zelda Breath of the Wild on a Tuesday. But hopefully I will see you soon, friends. Bye for now.